Good morning to all. I'm Giulia Leghissa from the editorial board of the Build Up portal. For the ones who are attending a Build Up webinar for the first time, welcome. For our returning audience, thank you for renovating your interest. It is a pleasure to host today's webinar entitled The CRAVEzero Pinboard, an interactive web-based modular framework supporting the development of low life cycle cost of nearly zero energy buildings, which is organized in collaboration with the Horizon 2020 CRAVEzero project. I would like to invite you all to contribute and participate in this webinar. You can ask questions by typing in the box on the right side of the screen. They will be answered at the end after the presentations. You can also contribute to Build Up portal. Build Up is a collaborative platform in the field of energy efficiency in buildings. It is continuously updated and it represents one of the key sources of information on the topic of energy efficiency. You can register and become a member of the community, and you can also upload news, events, present a case study, results from a project, and so on. I would like to invite you all to navigate the portal. In the Learn section, you will find all the podcasts of the past webinars, so it is possible to listen to all the previous presentations. Now, I would like to leave the floor to Tobias Weiss from AEE, Institute for Sustainable Technologies. He will give a general overview of the project. Then the project partners will present the features of the CRAVEzero pinboard. So please, Tobias, we can start the session.
This is Tobias Weiss. So I will give you a short overview of the CRAVEzero project. So it's an Horizon 2020 project with a lot of partners from the EU and a lot of practitioners and industry partners in the sector of developing nearly zero energy buildings. And our focus is to think about life cycle cost reduction and market acceleration of nearly zero energy buildings. As we said earlier, so just give you a few hints on the web page. So the web address is cravezero.eu. And for those of you who want to work with the pinboard itself, the address is pinboard.cravezero.eu. So that's the direct link where you can access the interactive web platform. I would recommend you wait a little to do this by yourself and listen to the webinar first, and then you can try by yourself. About today's agenda, I will start by giving a general project overview. Euroc Research, we talk about the lifecycle cost tool they have developed within the framework of the project. ATP Sustain will talk about how to optimize the lifecycle process of a nZEB building by showing you optimized process map, and I will show you a lifecycle project management tool that can be used within the framework of the pinboard. Fraunhofer-ISE will talk about the business models for nZEBs and the business model canvas ready to use, and variety of existing business models for nZEBs that have proved to be successful. Also from IE Intech, we will talk about the parametric simulation of nZEB buildings. So what are the optimal combinations of life cycle costs and technologies available? And at the end, we will have time to answer your questions. So once again, please type in your questions in the form to your right. CRAVEzero is all about lessons learned from nearly zero energy buildings all over Europe, and they have been looked at over the whole life cycle of the buildings. So really from urban planning phase to the planning phase to the construction phase and the operation phase. And we have looked at the energy performance of those buildings and also in the life cycle costs. To understand the project a little bit more of what we are doing is, as you can see in this chart, on the x-axis we have like all the phases a building is hosted in, like from political decision to urban planning, construction, operation, maintenance, and renovation phase. And on the y-axis, you can see the accumulated costs or also the accumulated demands, for example, the energy demand of or the whole energy demand of the building. So as it accumulates, very often we say, okay, in construction, operation, maintenance, so till the end of the life, so there is a lot of cost that we have to deal with. Very often we say for a nearly zero energy building or a high quality building, we have to invest a little bit more in the beginning, especially in the planning or maybe even in the construction. And over the life cycle, when it comes to the operation, maintenance, and renovation phase, we kind of save money. At the CRAVEzero project, we look at all the phases separately and think of what are the key actions to be taken in order to reduce the costs in all of the phases. So what are the maximum potentials for cost and demand reduction in all of the phases of the life cycle? And the actions are dealing like with optimized technology sets, innovative business models that can reduce costs or shift costs from one phase to another. We're also thinking of improvements in terms of processes of the life cycle. And we're not only talking about all those phases of a building, but also on a multi-perspective. So we're talking about different stakeholders that are involved at different phases in the life cycle. For example, municipalities, authorities, citizen groups are more like involved in the political decision or urban planning phase. Then it goes more to the planners, construction companies, investors, real estate agents, the facility management, the tenants, the users. So different stakeholders have a different interest in the life cycle of a building, different time expectancy, and they're dealing with different types of costs and different types of performance of buildings that are important. So this is basically the CRAVEzero project, and what we're trying to do is to get down even by and learning from existing nZEBs, where can we get down with energy performance of the building or the energy demand? How can we improve that? How can we improve performance, and how can we lower the demand? And at the same time, how can we reduce the life cycle costs in all of the phases to create win-win situations for all stakeholders? And the project itself is dealing with like a lot of work and a lot of deliverables, and they are all available on the CRAVEzero website. But additional to that, through the CRAVEzero website, there is a special section that's called the CRAVEzero pinboard that we would like to talk about today. And this pinboard is a modular framework. So a lot of results from this project has ended up in different modules. So for example, there is a module of, it's called an nZEB business model canvas that we will discuss about later on, that deals with a variety of existing business models for nZEBs and also the possibility to create your own business models. We're working off, you can work with an interactive process map. So the whole life cycle of buildings is kind of displayed in a standardized process with all the stakeholders and possibilities of how to integrate them best for an nZEB process. There is a lifecycle cost tool, an interactive web tool, and also a downloadable spreadsheet that is free to use. We're working with lifecycle cost benchmarks and parametric cost and energy calculation. Investors calculation for nZEBs, so to calculate the revenue of nZEBs and also possible co-benefits. And we will be talking about the lifecycle cost tracker tool or a project management tool that's focused on nearly zero energy buildings. And before we go into the first module, I just shortly give you an overview. So this is the website of the CRAVEzero pinboard. You can access it here. So the link was also displayed at the beginning of the webinar. And as you can see, you have a couple of menus to navigate through the pinboard. So there's the navigation menu on the left, and you can also navigate through the different modules of the pinboard by clicking on one of those icons. When you stay long on those icons, you also see what the module is all about and how to access it by clicking on it. I can also find out more about the project and find some tutorials and some help videos and explanation on how the pinboard works So, and now I would like to give the presentation to Benjamin Köhler, who will, I think, tell you a little bit about the module of the business models. Sorry, it's the lifecycle cost tool of URAC.
Hi, here Federico Garcia from URAC, and then we'll present you the lifecycle cost tool we developed within the framework of CRAVEzero. First, a brief introduction. Why an LCC tool? It is known that one of the main barriers from the nZEB implementation is the higher initial investment. That is why in this project, the design perspective changed, including also the time dimension. This means a shift towards a lifecycle perspective in order to propose solution for cost optimization or cost shifting. Our LCC tool is structured according to the approach provided by two primary sources, the ISO 15686.5 from 2008, which provides the main principles and features of an LCC calculation, and the European Code of Measurements, which defines an EU harmonized structure for the breakdown of the building elements, the building services and processes. I would like to focus on three assumptions we adopted in this LCC tool. First, the operation cost was estimated calculating a net energy consumption as a result of the energy consumed minus the energy produced on site. Then the maintenance costs. The maintenance costs were estimated using a percentage of the construction cost. And in particular, for the building services, we use the standard EN 15459, which provides a percentage to calculate maintenance cost starting from the construction cost. Finally, we decided not to include the end-of-life costs in order to limit the analysis in over a 40 years life cycle. Here, now I will go to the pinboard in order to show you how the tool works. First, as Tobias said before, we have divided the tool in two versions. One complete version, which is an Excel that is downloadable from this button here, and also has a tutorial video which explains in detail the functions. Then we uploaded to the website an online version, which is a simplified one that I will show you now. This is the introduction sheet, and through his button, we can go to the LCC web tool. As you can see, the tool is divided in three different sheets. First, the project information. In this first one, you will insert all the data related to your case study. Starting from the project data, we can select the construction year, for example, 2012-13. Then we will insert the geometric data. We can insert some surfaces in order to show how the tool works. The gross volume of our building and the net volume. It is also possible to insert data from income if is the case. I will leave it like this in this moment and then go to the energy demand section. In this section, we select the type of energy system. For example, in this case, we can select a heat pump, which is provided from electricity from the national electricity mix. We provide the energy consumption, the specific energy consumption, which comes from the energy calculation tool we have used before, the LCC tool. and also, for example, for the domestic hot water system, and say 20 kilowatt-hour per square meter for the household electricity and auxiliary. Then we provide information about the design and the enabling costs. For example, we can put some costs for the design, for the preliminary design, the executive design, and also some costs for the building site management. Then we have to provide information about the boundary conditions, so the economic calculation, say interest rate and inflation rate. Let's keep the interest rate 1% in this case. And finally, we have to indicate the energy costs for our country. In this case, we said we have in this example a heat pump, so we can provide a price for the electricity. And the price increase. Once we have provided all this data, we can move to the next sheet, the construction cost. Here we have three different sections: building elements, building services, and others. We have the main categories from the European Code of Measurements defined, and we can insert the area of the different elements, the unitary price, and also the maintenance cost defined as a percentage of the construction cost. For the case of the building services, we select the corresponding building service from this list. We have, for example, a heat pump. The construction cost for the heat pump system. And then if we have other costs, we can insert them in the last section. After providing all this data, we can visualize the results in this last sheet. We have also here different sections and different ways of visualizing the results. First, we have a table displaying the costs, the LCC cost divided in investment and operation, and then in the subcategories, the whole life costs, considering also design, and finally, the detailed life cycle cost divided in operation, construction. So this was how the tool works. Another remark is that this tool also considers the possibility to analyze a variant of our case studies so that we can compare this variant to the base case. I will go back to the pinboard and leave the word to the next presenter.
Okay, so the next presenter, I think, will be Benjamin Köhler from Fraunhofer-ISE.
We will see. I think it was first the processes, but nevertheless, hello from my side. This is Benjamin Köhler from Fraunhofer-ISE and my colleague.
Good afternoon. Fatma is here.
I currently don't have the control of the presentation. But now I have the presentation. Question on this side, Tobias, should we switch or skip your part and first do the business models?
sorry for the confusion. Clara, would you be ready to give your presentation? This goes to Clara Meyer.
So, hello everybody, here's Clara from ADB Sustain, and now I hope I get control of the presentation and show you something about the process map and the whole thing about designing and nearly zero energy building. This process part is this process part is one part of the CRAVEzero project and deals with the whole life cycle of a building. It is divided in two parts. One part is the process map, where you can see a whole structure of a process, and the other part is a management tool. In this management tool, you can easily say who is relevant in this process, who have to do something, and when somebody have to do something in the process. So this is just a short overview what I'd like to show you afterwards directly in the pinboard. I'd like to show you in the pinboard the whole building life cycle. So it starts in the project development, goes over to the planning, to the building, to the operation, conversion, or maintenance, and also to the end of life. Right now, it's really critical to look at the whole planning process, because in every single process step, you have a big issue in planning, building, realizing a nearly zero energy building. If in one point something went wrong, you have to deal with it the whole following process. So you really have to notice that every single step have to be right in this point. So how to? It's a really amazing work to do to plan and build a nearly energy building, but everybody from us know how to build a, say, normal building, so where we can go into this process, and I'd like to show you where are some action items, where can I do something to really plan an nZEB. This is the process map I'd like to show you afterwards, and the other thing in this work package of the CRAVEzero project is the process management tool. And here is also the possibility to work in an offline and an online version of the management tool. In this management tool, you can say what you like to do to plan and build an nZEB, and see really many informations about how to do it, when to do it, where are some difficulties, where are some cross connections to other action items, and when to do it. You can see it here, and also who should do it. So you really can follow up with the whole process in your own project with this tool. So now I'd like to change through the CRAVEzero pinboard and show you how to work with this project, with this planning process. The process map is shown in this subcategory of our pinboard, and easily by clicking on it, you get onto the starting page of the CRAVEzero pinboard. In this starting page, you can see a step-by-step guidance how to work with the CRAVEzero process map. What I'd like to tell you now in this short introduction. So we should start first, I think, in this urban planning process. The urban planning process is the first thing is the first planning step where we start. So the urban planning process is made mainly from planners and the municipality to say, okay, here is an area which should be planned by, built by, and so on. So first of all, I'd like to show you the more or less overall structure of this process map. The process map is always divided in different steps here. So now we're in the process, and here in the political decision and urban planning phase. This urban planning phase is also divided in other subcategories so that you can easily look through the different steps and say, okay, here in this process step am I, and what to do in this planning process step in this. So, oh, yeah, yes, you can also click on it, and then you get an image of the planning process, and it can easily print it or download it. But more information are also included in this process map. If you can see here in the top of the process, there are bottlenecks marked red. So like Tobias said earlier, lessons learned. I think here in this bar you can easily click on it, and then there are some more information shown for you. So there are our lessons learned displayed, where can go something wrong and where you have to be aware that nothing goes wrong. But more information are also included. In a planning process, there are different partners included. So we divided it in four groups. So you can say, okay, I'm a user or an owner of the building. I'm the municipality. What can I do that everything goes right? Also, there's an option, okay, I'm an integrated planner. I say integrated planner because for an nZEB, it's really, really relevant that planner work together in an integrated planning team and an integrated planning process, so that an nZEB the planning comes up with an nZEB. And for the last, also the construction companies have an impact in the building the nZEB. So if I'm now I'm a planner, so I'm interested in a planning action item, so I can easily click on it and say, okay, here, what can I do for doing coming up with an nZEB? And there are shown all the action items which we defined in our project, and they are marked to one specific process step. So you can easily say, okay, I'm in my normal, here's the normal planning process, and what can I do to reach the nZEB status? So now looking at that, and then also the construction companies, of course, have no action items in this part, but the municipality could do something in this part, and also the owner can do something in this part. But now we also want to show you the planning process. It's the complex one of this page, and there you can see, okay, here's the whole planning process with lots of sub to-dos. So now we want to show you also the action items for the planners once again. So I'd like to, let's say, take the action item improve window to wall ratio. I think almost everybody in the planning should know about this, but maybe somebody don't know what the meaning is of this action item, and then you can easily see some more information about that. So you can click on it, and then external window is open. Okay, I hope, yes, now it works. It just takes some seconds, and here is a whole description about the action item, and this description is provided for every single action item you've seen before. In this description, there are the description of the action item, what means, okay, what it's about, which values you can provide if you choose this action. There's also a small picture of it, so you can easily talk to an building owner what you want to do in this action item. There are some co-benefits. There are sometimes are listed conflicts to other action items, so you always know if you take this action item, I have to look up with those action items so it went totally right, and also influences other action items, so you get the cross connection. Then it goes further with the importance. So why it's so important to look up the window to wall ratio, also the difficulties, where are some restrictions, where are some bottlenecks where you can fall onto. And then, of course, there are some standards and regulations, and also the main driver in this part, the planners, or more directly, the architects can do here much things, and also the building physics are here really involved. Further, there's the stakeholder, the owner of the building, because an owner always have an meaning about how many glass should be in the facade. And further, there are some business models, technologies, etc., from the other work package, which are relevant for this specific action item. And there are described some quality goals, quality and quantity goals. So you can say, okay, I'd like to choose a high goal, a medium goal, or a low goal. So you always have different values where you can range your building. So now go back to the planning process. I hope this works. Okay, I have to close this. Okay. Oh, I think I've closed the whole browser, not only my window. So now we have to go back to the CRAVEzero pinboard. And now I'd like to hand over to the process management tool, which Tobias like to show you when we finally manage to go back to the CRAVEzero pinboard.
Okay, thank you, Clara. So I think we're back on the pinboard. So just try to show you the CRAVEzero process tracker. So as you have seen, as Clara has explained, the concept of action items that are used throughout the life cycle of a building, and the process map is mainly a tool to visualize all the interrelations of different stakeholders and possible actions that should be done. And the other part, or the other way how you can look at it, is more from the perspective of a lifecycle tracker or a lifecycle project management tool that exactly looks at the various actions and possibilities that are theoretically possible throughout the life cycle of an nZEB. There is, again, as Federico said before, one like really extensive version as an Excel, downloadable Excel tool that you can download to your desktop and modify. And also we have above here this lifecycle tracker simplified version for the web. So by clicking on it, you get to the landing page where you find all information of how to use this tool. But now we get started directly. So we click on the lifecycle management tool. We can see here, for example, when we start with the urban planning process, the different actions that are possible. We can select or deselect actions that are interesting for us in our process. Look at the actions that we would be interesting to implement in the urban planning process. For example, to take 1.10 to work with the urban microclimate. When I click on this checkbox on the left, the action opens up in a different format than Clara displayed it before. There's also a description of the action, the importance, the difficulty of implementation, the standards and regulations, so you can have more detail on this. So, and once you decide, okay, I would like to work more with the urban microclimate, for example, in the urban planning, you can first of all, like in every good project management tool, define a person that should do it. So for example, I say the architect should do it, and I can also define maybe some low, medium, or high quantitative or qualitative targets. So what should be done? And then I can also say, okay, when should this action start? So it should start at a date, and it should maybe be finalized, or where is the deadline of this action? And as you can see on the right, we can see a bar that will indicate like the start of this action and the deadline. We can also select whether it's delayed or it has been completed or it's an ongoing activity. And you can do that like with various different actions and update. So once you've filled it out, you can update your actions. You can maybe also targets change throughout the project, and maybe even actions can be added, selected or deselected. You can also kind of tell the start of the phase, of the specific phase. You can kind of do this all by the calendar function. You can also print out and modify the whole process and really track all the actions that you plan to implement by developing your nZEBs throughout the life cycle. So this really should be a tool, like a project management tool, but really with a dedicated focus on nZEBs and nZEB specific actions. So this is basically a tool how to do this. So all the phases from urban planning, operation, maintenance, and till the end of life are included in this. So you can also access it here, going to the next phase with different actions. So you can kind of start your nZEB development really from the beginning, from the urban planning, or you go to the phase that you are in at the moment, select the actions that you would like to implement, and kind of select main drivers, targets, dates, and the status. Okay, so this was all about the Lifecycle project management tool, the Lifecycle tracker tool. I would now really give the word to Mr. Benjamin Köhler from Fraunhofer ISIS. I think now it's really your turn.
Thank you, Tobias. Yes, I also think that now it's really our turn. So once again, a warm welcome from Fraunhofer ISE. I'm not sure. I think yes. Now I have the control and the presentation. In the following 15 minutes approximately, we will introduce you the module of the business model canvas or business model development, and how we analyzed existing business models in the nZEB market across Europe and in general the building sector. Furthermore, we will introduce possibilities to use the results of our research to develop new business models for yourself. Detailed descriptions of the methodologies, the background, and additional descriptions of the found business models, like one-page descriptions for each business model, which is also online, can be found in the deliverables of the work package 5 of the CRAVEzero project on the website. The used approach very much follows the approach of Mr. Osterwalder, the so-called business model canvas, which is well known and also widespread. On the starting page of the module, there is a short introduction how to use this module and how to use the business model canvas online. Originally, it is divided in 3 steps. So the first step is how to use the nZEB business model repository. The second step is the 9 boxes of the canvas, and the third step is create a new nZEB business model. In our presentation, we slightly changed it. We decided to start with the 9 boxes of the canvas before really explaining 2 exemplary business models in the canvas online. So we now switch to the pinboard once again. Yes, you can find the business model canvas on the left-hand side on top. As I said, the starting page contains a short description how to use this module. And we will directly go to the business model canvas now in order to explain you the structure and how you can use it. It is divided in 2 sections. Actually, it's the business model canvas where you can explore analyzed and existing business models, currently about 60 from the construction sector, building sector all over Europe. And the second part is the create your own business model, which will be introduced in a second. Here you can see a drop-down where you find all different business models. You can click on them and they're shown in the canvas structure. Furthermore, in the middle of the website of the pinboard, you see the indication of the life cycle phases for which the explained or described business model is valid, where it is used. And as quite a lot of our business models are either part of our partners or like really part of their companies, or they were developed and assessed via desk research, you also find a link where you find more information about the company or the business model itself. The canvas structure is divided in 9 parts, and it visualizes how like all elements of your business model. In the center of each business model canvas are the value proposition and the customer segment, which is addressed. One short remark, like when you go to the headlines of each sector of the canvas, there is a short explanation of the most important or what is or should be explained in this box. I will now shortly introduce you the different elements of the canvas in order for you to be able to follow the explanation of the 2 exemplary business models later. As I mentioned, the value proposition is the central part of the business model. It is a collection of all products and services a business offers to meet the needs of its customers. The value propositions may be a quantitative, like a price or efficiency, or a more qualitative one, like the overall customer experience and outcome. It describes the bundle of products and services that create value for a specific customer segment. There are several questions which should be answered when you fill out this part of the canvas. Like, for example, what value do we deliver to our customer? Which one of our customers' problems are we helping to solve? Or what bundles of products and services are we offering to each customer segment? The reason of why customers choose one company or over another is the value proposition itself. So as I explained, that's the central element of the canvas, and all other parts are more or less subordinates to this one. The second one, the customer segment. It is about addressing different customers and also to structure your customers in a good way for you. So the questions are, for whom are we creating value? and who are our most important customers? The customers are the core of a business and the overall company. And without profitable customers, it is not possible for a company to survive for a long time. You can also group your customers into different segments with similar or comparable needs, jobs to get done, behaviors, or other attributes. Possible markets or segments are mass markets and niche markets. For the other segments, I go fastly from left to right. So on the very left side, the strengths and key factors summarize what a company needs to deliver the value itself. So who are key partners, which key resources are we acquiring from partners, and which key resources and possibilities do we need inside our company, our own. The activities and capabilities, the central questions there are: what key activities do our value propositions require? And based on our value proposition, what kinds of capabilities are key to our business? Next section's maturity. It describes the most important assets necessary to make the business model of a company work and how they're already integrated in the overall company structure itself. The customer relationship, it's about what type of relationships do we want to establish with our customer segments? What is the customer segment expecting from us? And which ones do we already have established? Closely connected to the customer relationships is the channels, which is about the question through which channels do our customer segments want to be reached, and how are we already reaching them in the moment? Probably the most difficult parts are the cost structure and the revenues, especially when you want to really put quantitative values down here. Nevertheless, questions which might easily be answered, or like more easily be answered, are in there in a qualitative way are: what are the most important costs inherent in our business models? Which key resources are the most expensive ones, and which key activities are most expensive? Please note, cost-driven business models focus more on minimizing the costs than value-driven business models. However, cost minimization is always an essential part of each business model. The revenue streams describe how you generate revenues and thereby profits for your company. But you can also ask yourself for questions like, for what values are our customers really willing to pay? There are different possibilities for the streams, like sales, usage fees, subscription fees, or even lending or renting. Please note that you also have some note boxes or blue boxes on the right-hand side, which you can select and place in the different segments of the business models if you want to add some notes for yourself. Because like what you can always do is printing out the business model to have it on paper and like work on it, and when you place some notes there, they are all also printed. Now I hand over to my colleague who will shortly explain you or introduce you to exemplary business models.
Good afternoon, my name is Fatma. At this part, we will show two existent business models, following with the explanation of how to use the create your own business model tool with an example usage again. First of all, I would like to show as an example business model 24. It is called Green Building Council Italia, the name of the company. The value proposition of the mentioned model is the association and platform for advocacy, networking, and conduct of activities for building sustainability. This association represents Italy's primary point of contact for sustainability in the construction sector. They state that sustainability is profitable green buildings consume less energy between 24 to 15%, produce less emissions between 33 to 39%, consume less water up to 40%, and produce less solid waste, which is also up to 70%. Their customer segment is building professionals, consultants, architects, planners, engineering firms, construction firms, material producers and suppliers, public administrations, universities, real estate, and asset managers. The second example we would like to show is business model 25. This business model belongs to Green Deal's Netherlands. These government initiatives' value proposition is to act to remove bureaucratic obstacles that impede the development of green initiatives in all fields, such as removing obstacles in legislation, network creation, and knowledge bridge. They also try to access the capital markets as well. The motivation behind this business model is that it takes between 2 to 3 years to be in the market when initiatives are enrolled. So with their business models, they are trying to overcome of this obstacle. Companies, social organizations, local governments are the eligible customer segments to get support by Green Deal's Netherlands. For the second part, I would like to switch to the presentation to show how to use the create your own business model tool, which is pre-filled by us with an example newly created business model. Even though there's no, first of all, even though there's no save button here, it is still possible to work on the same business model if the user is still using the same browser. The example business model's name is One Stop Shop Waste. The value proposition of this business model is that since the building industry is getting heavy on the environment every day, it is inevitable to try to find new solutions to this problem. And the focus of this problem is trying to gather all the stakeholders together and recycling the materials or selling them as a second-hand materials to this market, which consists of the same stakeholders. Mass market, multi-sided platform, wholesale, buyer, retailers, and construction companies are some of the customer segments of this business model. It is also possible to print out the business model canvas, which a group is working on. Also with this print form, you can save the canvas as a PDF, changing by the destination. This is how a pre-filled, newly created business model looks like. Now, Benjamin will conclude the business model chapter.
Thank you, Fatma. Just a couple of closing words from my side. What is important that the business model canvas itself is a tool to help you understand the business model in a straightforward and structured way. However, it is always just a short description, mainly consisting, thank you, of headlines, and it can be a starting point for an internal discussion and the detailed development of a new business model. However, what is important is that the canvas does not deliver a ready-to-use business model, but is, as already mentioned, a starting point for further discussions and specifications inside your company. Thank you very much, and now we hand over to the next speaker, David from IE Intech.
Yeah, thank you very much, Benjamin. Now it's my turn, and we are now coming to the presentation of the parametric simulation dashboard. At the beginning, I would like to give you also some brief information on the background of the parametric calculations. When we are talking about parametric calculations, we think of the so-called brute force method with the investigation of all possible solutions. That means that in the project, different parameters were defined, varied, and all possible combinations were calculated and then analyzed. As a result of this, we have to deal with many variants. Therefore, a calculation method had to be developed which achieves the best results in a minimum time. The calculation method within the CRAVEzero project is based on the energy calculation with the Passive House Planning package, the so-called PHPP, and the lifecycle cost calculation with the already mentioned CRAVEzero lifecycle cost tool. Since both tools are Excel-based tools, we were able to automate the calculation using macros in Excel. The parametric calculations were done so far for 6 buildings. These buildings are residential buildings, but also office buildings. And I would like to highlight 2 reports, which you can find on the CRAVEzero website, where you can find detailed information to the background of the parametric calculations, to the boundary conditions, to the parameters, to the variance, and also all the results are presented there. The results are also prepared in an interactive way, which is the so-called case study dashboard, and where we go now. So we have to change, first of all, to the pinboard. And here on the pinboard, on the starting page, we can see a button which is called Case Study Dashboard. By clicking it, we enter to the first page, which shows the introduction. It guides you through the dashboard and it describes how to use it. We can also see the names of the 6 buildings that have been investigated so far. And by clicking on one of the buildings, we come to the dashboard. That means we come to the results. So while the dashboard is loading, I can give you some additional information. That means, as I said before, different parameters were investigated and they can be divided into 3 categories. The first one is, the first category includes the technologies, like for example, the building envelope, the heating system, the ventilation system, PV system, which you can also find here on the left part of the dashboard. The second category includes the parameters related to the cost calculation. For example, the interest rate, the energy prices, also the energy price increase. This is combined here in the sensitivity, but also, for example, in the CO2 follow-up costs. And the third category includes parameters to analyze the user behavior. And here is included, for example, the room set temperature, the domestic hot water demand, and also the household electricity demand. This can be addressed here with the user behavior. The dashboard itself has 3 pages, and we are moving to the first page, which is, or the first page shows the combination of the lifecycle cost calculation and the energy performance calculation. And we have here the point cloud, where we have the lifecycle costs on the y-axis and the primary energy demand on the x-axis. And you now have the opportunity or the possibility to filter the results. This can be done by either selecting one of the parameters here on the left side. That means when we're clicking on one of the parameters, for example, an envelope according to the national standard, we can see that the point cloud changes immediately and the results are filtered according to our selection. The second possibility to filter the results is by using this slide control on the top of the graph. Here we have 4 categories: the financing costs, the CO2 demand, the primary energy demand, and the net present value. And that means by using this slide control, we can also reduce the number of variants shown here. For example, if we do that for the net present value, we can see also that the point cloud changes. Now, to gain more information on the variance or on the parameters on the results that are shown here, we can use this display on the bottom left side. Here we can see information on the parameters that are included here in the point cloud. So, for example, when we move the mouse to one of the parameters, we can see, for example, the number of variants that have, in this case, district heating. So this is one possibility to analyze your results, that you get an overview of which technology, for example, is included here in this point cloud. The second possibility we have to analyze the results is to go directly to the point cloud and, for example, select one of the points. We just move the mouse over there, and then an additional information window pops up where we have the information on the results, but also on the different parameters that are included here. So this is the first page where we have the combination of the life cycle costs and the energy performance calculation. We're now going to the second page where we have a more detailed analysis of the energy performance calculation. The structure of the page is still the same, so that means we have the filtering option here on the top left side, but also again on the top we have the information on the corresponding parameters here on the bottom left side. And in the main part of the dashboard, we can see now 3 box plots, which give information on the heating demand, the primary energy demand, and also on the CO2 emissions. And also, as we had before with the point cloud, when we're changing some of the filtering options, for example, we add or we reduce the net present value or increase it, we also see the net present value is a bad example, but we can also see that it slightly changes the box plots. Besides the box plots here on the right side, we have a pie chart giving some additional information on the final energy demand, indicating the different applications, for example, heating, domestic hot water, the household electricity, and also giving the share of as an average value of all variants that are included according to our selection. Below the pie chart, we have 4 numbers. The first 2 are linked to the PV system. The first one is the average degree of self-sufficiency, and the second one is the average degree of self-consumption, or the average self-consumption rate. And we can see, okay, if the PV is activated, we also have the numbers here. When we select or deselect the PV system, we also see that the numbers go to 0. So you really have an immediate change of the results by selecting one of the parameters or by using the slide control. At the bottom, you can also find 2 additional numbers. First one is the average heating load of the building, and the next one is the average cooling load. So here, as I said, you have some additional information on the energy performance calculation. And on the last page, there is now the additional information on the life cycle costs. Again, the same structure, the same possibilities of filtering or selecting parameters. But what we can find here is an overview of the investment costs and the life cycle costs as box plots. When we're now moving or changing again the parameter selection, we can also see that the benchmarks here and the box plots change. Besides these box plots, we have an additional chart which shows some detailed information on the life cycle costs. On the left side, we have an overview of the different costs occurring throughout the building life cycle or the different building phases, We have the planning costs, the investment costs. We have here also the energy costs for operating. Repair would be included, and also the renovation costs. And here on the right side, we can see the residual value at the end of the at the end of the consideration period or calculation period, and what is remaining is the life cycle costs. Below that, we also have some numbers indicating average numbers for operation, for the investment, and also giving an average annuity of the life cycle cost calculation. So that's it, more or less, to the parametric calculation dashboard. The same structure, the same possibilities to analyze the results is also given for the other buildings, which you can find here at the top. So just go to another building and you can analyze this building in the same way. That's all at the moment from my side, and yeah, I'm handing over to Tobias again.
Thank you, David, for the presentation and that you concluded with the pinboard. So I think now is some time for questions. So also for the audience, please feel free to post your questions here. So the first question goes to Federico from URAC. There was the question, I think, regarding the lifecycle cost tool. Is there, besides financial costs, is there also the LCA, lifecycle analysis, in terms of environmental footprint possible, or will it be included in the future? Maybe you can give some answers.
Yeah, at the moment it's not included, and we think that for the future won't be included too, because we would like to focus only on the life cycle cost analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Federico. So the next question is, I think, quite general. So maybe I can also answer it. Are construction projects outside the consortium foreseen to use the tools? I think I can answer this question. So the tools or the pinboard has been developed based on needs and projects that we used in the consortium. Basically, we also tried to work with the tools when we analyzed CRAVEzero projects. But the main reason for the pinboard is really to make it publicly available for construction processes that are ongoing outside the consortium, for people to use them to improve the life cycle costs and energy performance of nZEBs. So basically all the tools should especially be used for construction projects outside the consortium. And I think we're also doing this already in the CRAVEzero project, that we are implementing a lot of new projects that have not been part in the projects that partners are developing, and trying to implement tools from the pinboard. But I think it's important that you kind of pick the tools that are necessary or interesting for the new nZEB developments. So it's not needed to make all the modules that we have just shown, and there will be some additional modules coming up in the future, but that you really pick the modules that are interested in, for example, the life cycle costs, and implement that in new projects. So this would be the ultimate goal here. So, and there is another question that is also quite general. So how the pinboard tools will be available after the end of the project in the calendar. So I think it's basically like this. So we are now in the third year of the project. So a lot of tools will be updated and constantly updated. So please feel free to give us your input. For the next year, there will be additional modules coming and additional some additions, and we will improve the pinboard constantly till the end of the calendar. After that, the pinboard will still be online, will still go on further after also the end of the project. So we are in discussion with several groups, or to also kind of redevelop it further, and possible organizations to further host it. But what we can see from now on, that will be also the years after the end of the EU project, the pinboard will be online and will be available to use for free. And we will look for the further development of the pinboard, like to integrate new tools, like to have it also maybe be available, some of the tool for renovation projects or different kind of projects, and to add additional functionality. So at the moment, we're trying to kind of discuss this with additional partners, but the way it is now, it will be also available after the project. There is another question. It is considered in the spirit of the European Delegated Regulation 244/2012 in the calculator. I think it's meant the Lifecycle calculator. Maybe the question also to Federico, do you know that regulation?
Actually, I'm not aware now on that kind of regulation, so I need to check about that. I don't remember right now.
Okay, so I think maybe the person who asked the question, maybe you can specify this regulation for us to answer the question.
Yeah.
Maybe a question for also for Clara. The process map that you have shown, is it applicable for all EU country, or it is country specific?
So thank you for this question. I just forget to say that the process is designed to be more or less applicable for all EU countries. So we looked it up inside our consortium, and they say, okay, yes, it's more or less the same in our country, and we can use this process and then add some action items. So it's for all EU countries.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe one question also to David about the case studies you have shown in the pinboard and the dashboard. Will there be more case studies that people can look at in the future?
Yes, there will be additional case studies that are now investigated with a different topic, not that much focusing on technologies, but having a more broader analysis regarding architectural or planning options, and those will be calculated and they will be added also in the dashboard to analyze them online. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And one question for Benjamin and Fatma about the business model canvas. You have shown existing business models that you have collected and the possibility to work with a new business model in this business model creator. Do you think, what do you plan in the future in terms of business models? What will be the activities in the project?
Well, what we are currently working on is really combining or finalizing the last deliverables, in which all business models we found are summarized once again, and different possibilities to develop new business models are described in detail. Furthermore, there will be several business models we found in the consortium or new business models described as well. And what we also would like to do is together with partners to really try to implement some of the business model ideas in their company structure. So there will be some workshops in the coming months within the project. Yes, so far for the project side, beside the project, I cannot tell in the moment how we will go on working on the topic.
Okay, thank you. So I think these were all the questions that have been raised. So if there are no further questions right now, I think we can close the webinar session. For all of the listeners, I think please have a look at the pinboard, try it out for yourself. We are open for suggestions, improvements, and if you have any further questions, we would also like to contact us via the contact field on the website. And I also would like to thank the whole build-up team for hosting this webinar. So thank you for being there, and hopefully see you soon.